Hey, this is Fate at Diablo3strategyguide.com, bringing you another Inferno level wizard build breakdown and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about the build that I personally use the most in Inferno difficulty, and that is the Arcane Orb Venom Hydra build. And just so you guys know, the footage is post 1.03. I made sure to take this video after the patch, and so this is very much relevant to the current state of the game. So I am going to be making a couple assumptions during this video. It is a build that is kind of analyzed and broken down at level 60, so I'm really going to be focusing in on that Inferno level of play. So if you're below that, some of this stuff might be slightly foreign to you, but some of the concepts still should apply to kind of the lower levels. You should be definitely familiar with kiting as a concept, and if you're not, please check out some of our other videos where we cover that concept more thoroughly. An extremely important thing for all of the range classes to know, of course. And of course, if you are in those level of difficulties, you should be comfortably geared up for that stage. This is not necessarily a very good build to be under geared and do, although I suppose it could work in some scenarios. Alright, so moving on to some of the strengths of the build. So for this build, there's a couple different schools of thought on how to properly gear up a wizard. And we're not going to cover those too thoroughly today, but one of the schools is to use a one-handed weapon as well as a offhand source. And so one-handed weapons tend to be a little bit higher attack speed but lower damage per hit. Both gearing options are definitely possible to do in Inferno level of play, and certainly viable, but from my personal experience, the two-handed weapon route generally is a little bit cheaper to gear for, as you only need to buy one item, and just generally speaking, the two-handed route works quite a bit better for this build in particular, because generally what the limiting factor towards doing more damage per second isn't your actual attack speed, but in the case of this, it is your arcane power. And what you'll quickly figure out is that you're running out of arcane power. While you might do stronger burst damage because you have a higher attack speed, you're going to run out of arcane power, and whether you do that over a longer period of time or a shorter period of time, the attack speed is kind of an empty DPS metric. And so a couple other things about this style of play is that it kind of works in these lower space areas a little bit better than some of the other builds that I've gone over. Specifically the kiting build, as that one requires a fair amount of space to move around, back into, and kite these elite mobs for a while. If you tend to run into an elite mob using the kiting build, early on in a dungeon, it becomes exponentially more difficult to kite him, as you kind of have to move in circles rather than in a straight line backwards. Alright, so another strength of this build is it uses the high damage per arcane power Venom Hydra, another weakness of the kiting build. And it still has really high mobility. It utilizes teleport, as well as you'll see in a lot of my gear that I actually use the mobility boost from not only the boots, but from a pair of legendary bracers and a legendary ring. And while that's not inherent in the build necessarily, it's really good in order to properly move and outmaneuver some of these projectiles and elite mobs that might have some of the tougher affixes attached to them. And of course, because it's a slower attack speed thing, it works very well with crit, because crit is just another thing that you can add to items to just increase the overall damage output that you're doing. And unlike attack speed, this is not an empty DPS metric. It instead just in general makes you do more damage. Moving on to some gameplay right here is you'll see me doing this kind of this mini event, and in this one I don't kill any elite mobs, but you can see, generally speaking, kind of what I was talking about is that in general, if you look at the bottom right purple bar, my arcane power is really low, so even if I were to theoretically attack much faster, I wouldn't be able to utilize it because my arcane power is already so low. And that's not to say that attack speed is bad to have at all, as just having attack speed will increase the animation speed, which is never a bad thing. It's just to say that it's not as simple as increasing attack speed to increase your display DPS. It's often a very empty metric. And you can see some other things to note here is that the Arcane Hydra, not the Arcane Hydra, the Venom Hydra is being used, but it's often off screen. And that's kind of what you want, and you kind of want to develop this inherent timer within your head to tell you when 15 seconds is over. Your Venom Hydra in general will be most effective at the end of its timer because it's able to spew out venom. So you don't want to be constantly casting it, but you also want to be kind of have that time where it's there, it has its venom pool, and it's doing a lot of damage. Alright, so in this video you'll see me leading again with the Hydra, and so that's really important because range packs in general tend to do these strong bursts of damage, and especially when you're moving around and navigating in a dungeon or in these areas where these kind of people that shoot projectiles that do a lot of damage, it's really important to be aware of those before you walk right into instant death. Okay, so I run into this elite pack right here. So the first thing you should do whenever you run into an elite pack, if you have an option with a wizard, is to retreat. The second thing you want to do is be able to quickly determine what affixes you are against so you can fight accordingly. So here you noticed I run against the reflect damage affix, which can be really annoying to play against. So what I do, one of the things I do is I carry around a ring that adds life on hit. So this helps to really manage that. And you can see this really negates a lot of the reflect damage that is done to my Hydra. And so also against this affix, what I will do is I'll move back with Diamond Skin, and I'll try to do my damage while Diamond Skin is on. And so this is just one of the great utilities of the fantastic skill Diamond Skin. Alright, so you can see I just kind of very straightforwardly move backwards and slowly whittle down this elite pack. And so once I believe I'm confident enough in my ability to take them down, I will stop, and you saw that at the end of the video there, and I will kind of kite around a central area. So this helps to really maximize the Hydra's effectiveness in just terms of damage, and help you kill that elite pack a little bit quicker. Alright, so let's move on to a ranged elite pack now. Okay, so you will fight ranged elites a little bit differently, and this includes packs that can teleport or are frozen, so they don't necessarily have to be ranged, but a lot of their abilities allow them to do damage from kind of a distance or really quickly move towards you and do damage. So molten, frozen, that kind of thing. So in general, against these sorts of enemies, you're going to want to keep larger distance in between you and them. And this is just kind of, in general, a good practice. And so you can see I instantly started running when I faced up against this elite pack, and I just keep moving. And so, so feel free to use teleport, and your cooldown management, of course, is still really important. And generally what you'll want to do with your teleport, because if you end up getting tagged like I am from afar, is to teleport when you can. And because I use the Illusionist rune, I am able to kind of trigger that cooldown very quickly if I am in trouble. So if you think you're going to get hit and you're at full life, you can put your finger above that teleport hotkey and just get ready to teleport. This allows you to use teleport effectively like Mirror Skin and just kind of create these images that distract and help you do some DPS or some damage while the enemy is distracted. And so much so that Illusionist and Teleport are really good in these scenarios, is that I almost recommend that you try to get enemies to hit you while you have Diamond Skin on. And so this really just allows you to reset your cooldowns for free. One other thing that kind of keeping your distance from your enemy in these ranged scenarios does, of course, is it allows you to more easily dodge their projectiles, just because you have more distance and more time to react. Okay, so the last kind of pack we're going to talk about here is kind of the scenario that will often occur in kind of dungeonous areas where you're into a dungeon and you really just don't have a lot of room to navigate. And this really gave the kiting wizard build kind of major issues. So you'll see me deal with a elite pack here in kind of this scenario. And so in these cases, cooldown management is really important, because when you'll kind of enter these sticky situations, otherwise what you'll simply do is, if you mess up your cooldowns, you'll just retreat more. You'll just move backwards. And so when you're in these scenarios, you just simply don't have that option. So see, I'm making sure to keep my diamond skin and teleport off of cooldown, so I can use them once I end up back in that corner. And then I'll just kite these guys back the other way. So you're going to really want to know, you're going to want to pay attention to that mini-map in the upper right as well, to make sure you don't go into kind of these dead-end areas as well. And so you can see I'm running out of space here, I'm running out of space again. So I have to be really careful of those fire chains. And if they happen, what I want to do is I want to activate that diamond skin and teleport right away. And so if I were to theoretically be caught in the fire chains, what I would want, and especially if my teleport were on cooldown, is I would still want to be spamming that teleport button, because you will have an instance where your illusionist will trigger, which will get rid of your teleport cooldown, so you will have a chance to get away. And that's one thing I really like about this build, is like it gives you a lot of survival tactics that you have to activate as a player, and they're not kind of these auto cheat death tactics that other races will necessarily have. So a lot of the gameplay and power is in your hands. And you can see at this point I kind of do that kill move tactic where I just kind of dance around the Venom Hydra, shoot arcane orbs when I can, and finally take down this skeleton mob. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and this footage is not too relevant to the overall gameplay, but we were watching a Siegebreaker Run, and you'll see me taking on the 1.03 Siegebreaker, who I find to actually be a little bit easier than the other Siegebreaker. He definitely does considerably less damage, and people might say, oh, well, he's got reflect damage now, and I'm a glass cannon class. Well, that doesn't necessarily need to be the case, and usually you have a lot of things to mitigate this, such as the diamond skin, so I'll just pretty much activate that whenever I think I'm going to be doing a high amount of damage. So you can see my arcane power was maxed out there, so I cast my diamond skin and started spamming. And I mean, one other nice thing about the new Siegebreaker is that he does drop those health globes 3 times at 75 health, 50% health, and 25 health. So you could just see it's very standard fight. Boss fights are more about just knowing your enemy's movements and predicting the patterns. They'll usually have pretty clear signals as to what attacks are coming. And Siegebreaker is definitely one of the more straightforward ones, as you can usually tell well in advance to his tactics. A little bit of lag there, but no big deal. There he goes, charging again, popping another health globe. So again, just to harken back to this, so this is my preferred Inferno Wizard build. I definitely like it a fair amount more than the Venom Hydra build, just simply because I like to cast projectiles, and I think Wizard is a fantastic spell, but I think this build works a little bit better for solo play. If I were to play a little bit more in groups, I would probably be using the Blizzard Hydra build, just because Blizzard scales so well in kind of these group scenarios because of its just AoE slow, especially if I had other people to do DPS. But in this case, Arcane Orb is just a wonderful spell with a ton of utility, does a lot of damage, and just has really good overall damage output. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please check out our website at Diablo3strategyguide.com. We have both low level as well as high level Inferno Act 3 and Act 4 info there. So please check that out, as well as our channel on YouTube, D3 Strategy Guide. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.